Welcome back to the Fixed Ops Roundtable. Today we have assembled a team of legends, experts in the field, and we are very humbled and honored to welcome the panel. They are Les Silver of Dynatron Software, Tully Williams from the Nilo Group, Jim Roche from WarCloud, David Boyle from Traction, David O'Brien from Quantum 5, and with me tonight to help ask the questions is my colleague Ron Overs, who is the publisher of Fixed Ops Magazine. And Ron, let me say this on behalf of the Fixed Ops Roundtable and Fixed Ops Magazine, that we are grateful for everybody who's here tonight on this panel, because you have helped shape these events and Ron's publication to what they are today. So we're very humbled that you're all with us and really excited to be able to ask you some questions tonight. And Ron, to hear what these legends have to say.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting, Ted, isn't it? I think everyone here has contributed articles to our magazine, provided, just a level of thought leadership that's really helped everyone, just do a better job, or at least see what the best of the best are doing out there in the business world today. A few of them have, graced the cover of the magazine. You may have seen this gentleman in the last issue. Thanks, Tully. You did a great job. Really appreciate all of your insights, and it was a lot of fun to work through that together. So really great stuff. You may have also saw at one point the gentleman next to him, Les, has been on the cover, and Les did a great job for us as well, talking about the tech shortages and how that has really affected every one of us. I don't know how this happened, but Ted found himself on the cover about a year ago. And that was quite a lot of fun, too, to just talk about exceptional training.
And Ron, if I may, I would like to call somebody who's not with us tonight, but with us in spirit, and that's our good friend Ed Roberts at Bozard Ford Lincoln. Ron, I believe he has been on the cover more than any of us twice, okay? And I've learned from these events, everybody, that once you grace the cover of Fixed Ops Magazine, it is now Sir Les Silver and Sir Tully Williams. And Ron, I thought I would add that color.
Oh, yeah, no. And obviously, yeah, Ted's a good friend, I think, of everybody on this panel. And what a great guy he is. I spent some time with him last week, and it's just a great time. It's one of those kind of people that you learn something new every time you spend time with him. There's something that he's experienced over his years. And a lot of people don't realize his whole track record of, starting off as a tech and working his way up through to chief operating officer of that great dealership down there, Bozard Ford Lincoln. So it's a lot of fun. So, it's really been great to just work through this whole thing, Ted, with you, and come up and say, let's come up with a few questions for these legends. And again, remember, we started off with experts, and then we were trying to decide, do we say experts or legends? And then when I looked up the definition of the word legend, and it really was, reflecting back and kind of, exasperating or romanticizing someone's past, right? Like maybe they don't have a future, but the reality is all of us are incredibly active today. And we have been around for more than a minute, I think, as they say today, right? And it's been a lot of fun, though. It's a great ride. We've learned an awful lot through this experience, myself as well. And it's just been fun to learn and then share that with people that are receptive to learning and wanting to grow their business. It's really a challenge, when you get on and you start talking to people that maybe don't have the experience level that the other people on this panel have, and just see them, their eyes open, and say, yeah, that's what it's all about. Maybe it's all about the hours, Tully, something like that, and it's, something as obvious as that you may just obviously overlook because you're so caught in the weeds, with today's problem, whatever that is. So what we did is we came up with three questions. I'm going to ask the first and the last, and Ted's going to, take care of the final one. And the first question is, as I said, we're all seasoned. We've been at this for, some time. Let's use a graceful at least 20 years. And tell me about a time in your life, in your business life, that was a turning point when you just felt like, wow, now I really get it, or now I really see the direction where my business or my career can go, and how, I can really, make the most of this industry. Les, can we start off with yourself and have you give us some thoughts?
Sure. 20 years is just a small fraction of the time that I've had the pleasure of being involved in this industry. It's coming on 40 actually right now. And there definitely were a number of turning points. One of the turning points actually was my being able to get involved with Boyle and Roche, who were very much a big part of what I was able to do in the industry. I've been involved with New Gen Results Corporation, MPI or Service Repair Solutions, and now Dynatron Software. Probably the biggest turning point, though, was with New Gen, when Ford Motor Company back in the late 90s decided they needed a strategy for service that's a retail service operation. They were doing so much warranty work, and the actual retail work, customer pay, was being ignored. They went out and they hired one of those $1 billion a day consulting firms, Austin Consulting Group, BCG, who are very, very smart people. Made a lot of good friends there. But they came to the realization that they knew a lot about retail, but they didn't know anything about the car business. And decided that they would ask me to get involved in the project team that came up with their around the wheel and quality care maintenance strategies. And it was a tough decision, actually, because I was living at the time in San Diego, and this required my traveling to Detroit almost every week for almost 3 years. Jim and Dave know the travel schedule that we have as consultants, but I sort of had to set aside any other opportunities in order to dedicate my personal time and effort to those projects. And they were very successful. They put New Gen on the map. We ended up enrolling about 3,500 Ford and Lincoln Mercury dealers through that program. And people might say that it's still around today, and this is, from 1997, 98 to 2021, 22. Tires, anybody heard about tires? Boyle remembers tires and around the wheel. Merchandising and service marketing, Jim remembers that all very, 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 very well at New Gen and Auto Point. So that put us on the map and was really the start of our success.
Sounds awesome, and it's quite a commitment on your part to make sure that was a success, right? Traveling up there that often, and we all know the perils of travel. It was never easy. People say it's tough today. It was tough back then. It's never been a fun time, right? It's a real time commitment just to get out. More or less accomplish great things when you get there. So that's great. Dave Boyle, how about yourself? Tell me about a time that you saw a big change in your business.
Well, it's probably bad form if I don't say today I met Les Silver, right? I think at this point. But actually, Les stole my thunder a little bit because, there's a bunch of things, Ron, over the years that I can call on, but there's two in particular that I want to touch on. And one of them was actually what Les said. In 1992, I was a broke, out of work, nobody would hire me, race car driver. I spent 10 years making a living and doing pretty good at it. And then for some reason, I just got very bad at it and was literally broke. And in fact, I'm not even sure Les knows this story. The day that I went to interview to work for him, I was sleeping in my van, believe it or not. I was broke. I had spent every dime that I'd ever made trying to make a living as a professional race car driver. And thankfully, he hired me. I'm not to this day sure why, because I didn't know anything. I remember the first dealership that Les sent me to, I was in a service manager's office and he kept using this word spiff. And I wrote it down and I ran back to the office the next day to find somebody that I wouldn't be embarrassed to ask what that meant, because I didn't have a clue. And so I think back on those days, I certainly have come a long way, but I suffice it to say, I owe a lot to Les and the New Gen days, and also took a chance and hired me again at MPI and SRS. And The second thing, Ron, really comes from my experience there. When we started MPI, the goal was to create the first digital inspection tool, right? So we had, technicians doing inspections on Toughbook computers, and we, digitized what had been on paper forever. And we were on a roll. People loved it. We were doing really, really well. And like a lot of technology companies, I think even to this day, we couldn't help ourselves in terms of making it more and more cool every day we turned. And I remember this day vividly. I don't know if Les does, but I remember this day vividly as well, sitting in his office. And the conversation turned to, we may have actually made it too good. And what I mean by that is we made it hard to use. We really did. I mean, it was so feature rich in some cases that the average person got lost trying to figure out how to use it. And I remember that day because to me, it was like, technology has to be good. It has to improve a process, but it also has to make somebody's life easier, right? It has to make things easier. And if you don't click the easy button, so to speak, then I think a lot of technology gets underutilized or not used at all. And it's something I've carried forward into this business here. I say to my team every day, do we need that? Will people use that? I mean, it's cool and it sounds neat and it's sizzly and people might buy it because of that, but is anybody going to use it? And if nobody's going to use it, then we're just not going to do it. And that was probably another turning point that I've learned that I've sort of carried through, every business I've been involved in since.
Wonderful.
Now, Tully would say it was very easy to use because he was one of the star users. So we can go back that far, and that's how long Tully's been drinking the Kool-Aid.
Right.
Well, hey, great insights and great, it's great to know a little history of what you've been through, because, many times look at it and they see today's success of your business and how you're doing, and they forget, down by a river in the van, waiting for a job interview, it's a tough life. I mean, we've all had those days, those bad moments, and it's great to see how well, and your product is just incredible. It really is. Dave O'Brien, let's finish the Hollywood squares, go straight down, and tell me a little bit about what's going on. How are you doing?
These are hard stories. I feel like I wish I'd have found Les, then I could have joined this club earlier. Right? I should have been helping Les. I think for me, it was the lesson of moving from managing people as if they were things and transitioning to the idea that leadership was about assembling people smarter than me, complementary to me, people who made the whole stronger. And I learned it in a hard lesson. I had the top two people on our team quit. Mm-hmm. And they knew I was moving into a new home. So they went to my boss that day with a David Letterman top 10 list called "Why Dave O'Brien's the Worst SOB on the Planet to Work For." And gentlemen, I still have it. It's framed. It stays in my office because I never try to let myself forget that leadership is about gathering great people, providing them vision, and getting out of their way until they say they need something. And for me, that was formative, right? Because it didn't come natural to me. What came natural was, I'll do it, get out of the way, here I go, you guys follow, do what I say. And when I made that transition, it enabled me to develop business and to develop a culture that caused people not to leave, right? And I'm grateful for the lesson. It did suck while it was going on. I won't kid you. When my boss called me in and he goes, did you do these things? And I go, well, wait a minute. And he started to read them to me. I actually got feisty. I said, nobody complained when we were all getting bonus checks. And my boss went, okay, all right, let's take it down a notch. And he sent me off to the Center for Creative Leadership. And he said, go learn and improve, or our next conversation's not going to go well. So mine was that. And I'm really grateful to this day for that opportunity to regather myself and see people different.
Dave O'Brien, there's a friend of yours, a colleague I want to bring into the conversation who's been listening in, who I'm sure might have a story or two to tell us about his success and his path. It's John
There it
Traver
is.
from Traver Connect. John, welcome.
Look at this crew. My goodness. I'm late for the party, but what a crew you put together here, Ted. Guys, how's everybody?
We're good, John.
Great to see you, John.
We made a Packers joke while you were gone, but we didn't do anything else without you.
Oh, yeah, you did. I'm sure you did. Kick a man while he's down, right?
Well, hold on. I want to hear Jim Roche's story, and then John, will come over to you because we're hearing some amazing stories about tough moments in business. And Jim, if you wouldn't mind sharing.
Sure, thank you. It's a great question. Everybody on the call is a serial entrepreneur, right? We create companies, and you create your own turning points based on the leadership principles that you learn over the years. And I was recently doing an all hands for War Cloud, which is now about 80 people. And I was taking them through War Cloud's leadership principles. And there were 5 that we were talking about. 3 of the 5 I learned from Les. He has, to this day, he has something he calls Les's 6-pack for success, which are his 6 leadership principles. So, those things help us create turning points as entrepreneurs. I think the latest turning point, because there have been many, as we have all said, throughout our careers in the various companies we've been involved in. The latest at War Cloud, we have technology that automates warranty processing. And, we go out and would ask people, would you like some technology that automates warranty processing? And, people are like, I've got plenty of technology. But rethinking and putting yourself in the customer's shoes. And the realization was that the current method of processing warranty consumes 12% of gross. So reframing that, not to, hey, would you like some cool technology, but would you like to get some more gross back by reducing the cost in warranty processing has really, really turbocharged what the company is doing. But I can trace those back to some of those leadership principles that, let's call it the Les Club, has instilled in us over the years.
Wow. Everybody, we're talking tonight this afternoon to the legends in our automotive business. They are Les Silver, Tully Williams, Jim Roche, David Boyle, Ron Overs, Dave O'Brien, John Traver. What a lineup. And we're finding out a turning point in their careers that has led to rapid growth in their business, in their companies. We've heard some amazing stories. John Traver, I'm sure you might have a story that you'd like to share with the group.
Well, Ted, when I saw this question, and I thought Ron did a great job of crafting that question, I remember when you and I met in '93. I think the turning point that I reflected on after reading the question was back then. All I was trying to do with business development was update an outdated sales process. What I saw, I was selling in 1986 at Russ Darrow in southeastern Wisconsin. Dave O'Brien and I met circa 1988 or 90, whatever it was, Dave, something like that. Les, you were already with Dave, and you were getting ready to do New Gen, or you were pretty close to it most likely at that point, because I ran into you at Fred Anderson's store in 94, 95 in North Carolina. But, so what I was trying to do back then was update an outdated sales process. And I felt like predictable showroom traffic was that solution. Appointments would be the vehicle. We were fortunate. We got a phone call from Toyota at that time. We were in 8, maybe 10 of their top 25 stores. Tony Fujita called Toyota USA, and he said, look, we may be interested in talking to you. It was a very short phone call, half hour, 20 minutes. Another call came a month or 2 later. John Matt, VP of Sales, wants you to come out. We have the software program we want you to look at. And then that turned into some workshops. And for the next 4 years, I would speak with Toyota stores around the U.S., and this idea would sort of unfold. The turning point, though, was that you had somebody, you had other initiatives that lined up with your initiative. And I think sometimes, there are a lot of good ideas that die roadside. Part of success with ideas is timing. I like to say that the cell phone in 1980 would have been a horrible idea. It's just a tick early, right?
Yeah.
When Steve Jobs came back to Apple, guys, in 1997, they had, do you remember the old Newton? How many of you guys remember the Newton?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay. And so Steve comes back to resurrect the company. They're in trouble. And the first thing he does is scrap it. And they had been working on that product for, I want to say 2.5, 3 years. And they had just kind of gotten to break even. And he said, nope, not now. Looking back, one of the reasons he waited was he was waiting on the internet. He said, look, we need a telephone to go with that. We're not there yet. So timing. And I think turning point for me was just realizing that move and how important the timing of that move was. Ted, you and I bumped into each other at GST. I think it was 93, during that visit. And, here we are a couple years later and still finding ways to hopefully make meaningful contributions in this space.
Ron mentioned that. Ron mentioned that although these are legends, Ron, everybody is not only relevant, but extremely relevant in our industry today, Ron.
So true. It's so true. And that's what's exciting about it, right? Because, we are passing that information on to other generations that, need to pick up the ball or grab the baton running and not relive, our errors of the past, right? And just start all over. So it's great to see. Tully, tell us about yourself. Where's a life changer for you?
Well, what's interesting is that Les came on and he said, I've been in this business over 40 years, and I'm scared to say that I'm close to you there, my good friend.
Yeah.
And there's two things that changed my world, and I think changed the industry in my world. First is my good friend Les flew out to John Anderson Chevrolet, and he came out and showed me this electronic inspection program. And I am telling you, I was hooked, line, and sinkered, because I realized that the inspection process, way we did it today, with someone going with the pencil, doesn't work. And we have an ability to communicate with our customers. And by the time they sent out the teacher to come out and train, because, it was all about the training, I've already came up with probably 8 different inspection sheets. And then I realized, oh my God. So then the excitement got in and we got the team set up. And then when I moved to the next dealer group was DG, is that I said, Les, I want to self-install. I had to go to NADA, kiss the ring, and ask the man, can I self-install my own thing? Because I know this product inside and out. And he was so kind and blessed to say yes. And I'm telling you, Les, I call you the father of the electronic inspection. The electronic inspection in my book has changed fixed ops forever. It could never be what it is today. We have, of course, made it better, but it started with your things that I talk about. I talk about same-day selling, which is your closing ratios of all the different categories, and I can't thank you enough. And the next big pillar for me, as everybody knows, is when I decided that the matrix from the old 20 groups do not work, and it's all about the hours. And my good friend Randy Brinkman one day showed me, slapped me across the face and says, you're looking at it all wrong, my good friend. We only sell one thing. And then I went, oh my God, you're right. I apologize to everybody. And I've been stuck on the hours kick, and it's slowly changing. Not all there yet, but to me, thank you, Les. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, David Boyle, for MPI. Thank you for making that change for this industry. And again, I want to say thank you, Randy Brinkman, for getting my eyes open to what we actually do in the service drive is still ours.
Tully, can I follow that up with a question for Les? And Ron, this is not something that we necessarily planned, but following up on that MPI, Les, I speak to people all over the country, and they say that you are the father of that electronic inspection, and I know it to be true. I heard recently, Les, that when you came out with a multi-point some years back, that was not necessarily going to be the primary product that you were going to be marketing or selling at that time. And that kind of came along the way. I don't know if that's true, if you want to speak to that, but I think that would be fascinating again to address.
Yeah, that in fact is very true. The first problem we were trying to solve, and talk about timing that John talked about, was around technician productivity. And our first product in that space was to take all of the service manuals that all of the OEMs published and to put them in electronic form and make it easier for the technicians to gain access to improve productivity. The only problem was they didn't have enough work. So improving productivity didn't do anything that was substantial, didn't really provide a benefit, because unless you could get more hours, Tully, there's no payback from being more productive. So we kind of switched gears and said, well, what can we do? And we had done vehicle inspections way back at NewGen on a piece of paper. And this is an interesting story. I was flying on an airline called Western Airlines, doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah.
And they have a magazine on the airline, and there was an interview with a technician, an airline technician. And they asked him, and Boyle remembers this, because this was a heart of what we did at NewGen. The technician said, if you treated your car the way you would an airplane, what would you do? And he said, you'd inspect it, you'd make sure that the oil was current, and if you did, it would last 50,000 or 100,000 miles. And we took the picture of that airline technician out of that magazine, and we slapped it on the backside of an inspection form, and we called it an airline-style vehicle inspection. And our customers, it caught on, and they had these posters that we put up in the service drive, and everybody wanted an airline-style vehicle inspection. All we did at MPI was automate that. The concept was already there, and we said, let's make it easier, let's make it more effective by doing inspections on a world-class basis.
If anybody wants to see that poster, I still have it.
Today, by the way, it comes in terms of timing.
I have that poster. I have that poster on my computer, and Les tells this story, and there's some pieces that need to be added to it. That product, by the way, was called ARGIS, Advanced Repair Guidance Information System. That made a lot of sense back then, right, Les? And I was salesperson number one for that product, and Les was convinced that I could go and sell it. And I remember the first time we got somebody to actually buy it, I actually think I may have shed a tear in the parking lot, because I'd never worked so hard in my entire life to sell anything. And I used to think I was pretty good at it. And I'll tell you something. And I remember, and there's another poster that became part of our arsenal at MPI, was I had sent, this was back in the BlackBerry days. We had taken a picture of a technician. I think it may have been at Ed Witt's dealership, Les, in San Diego. And the tech was sitting in his bay on a stool reading the newspaper at 2:00 in the afternoon. And I remember showing this to Les. I'm thinking, this is why we can't sell this, because these guys don't have any work to do. And lo and behold, that picture became one of our signature PowerPoint slides when we turned into the inspection side of the business, because it was, don't let your techs sit around like this with nothing to do, find more work for them to do. So it's really a crazy story that we started off with one thing, and how quickly we pivoted, to Les's credit, into something else. And like John said, it was just, timing was just, great product, bad timing.
Well, and we're now at the point where the original concept of technician productivity is now the issue. It's, just gone crazy how difficult it is to get work through the shop, to find technicians, to get them more productive. So comes full circle.
Yep.
It focuses where the focus needs to be done, right? It's great technician recommendations that we'd sell our family members, that we sell our customers. And it's interesting how that has come along so far. And we're actually talking about it more today than we ever have, ever.
Les, again, thank you for all that you do for this industry. I got to follow up on that. Everybody on this panel has been involved in the development and sale and, if you will, the marketing of your service or a product. Can you think back to a time, Dave, your story resonated with us, of a time when it was a difficult sale, that you mentioned, coming out of that meeting and, having a tough time, convincing others, and, how you pivoted as well. Jim Roche and Dave O'Brien and John Traver, you're welcome to chime in, because I know it was not an easy road for you gentlemen as well on the path to where you are today.
Well, 2008, 2009 was not a happy time.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're sitting there. We started with the premise that if you were doing automotive service, you might be a little bit buffered from other parts of the economy, that cars do need to be fixed under all circumstances. And a lot of our pitch to possible investors were, we were kind of a little bit shielded from the reality of the world. Then 2008, 2009 hits, and we had a chance to test that premise. And we found that we weren't as shielded as we thought we might be. However, something happened in 2008, 2009 that saved us. And that's the OEMs laid off tons of good people. And those people needed to live. They needed to work. And we were able to corral, and this was Boyle's actually idea, we corralled these guys as lead generators, because what we found was the dealers who were still looking to be in business 10, 20 years from now, they had the opportunity, if they had a trusted referral, to say yes to something, where nobody else did, because the hatches were battened down. Nobody was buying anything, except the dealer could say yes. So we corralled a group of people that knew dealers personally, where it wasn't a salesman making the call, but it was somebody that was opening the door, that there was a trust relationship. And that opened the door for us, and that saved us.
Wow. What a story. Anybody else got something like that you'd like to share with us tonight?
I think I'll piggyback off of what Les said. In 2008, the stores that were going to try to make it through that, as I was in the dealerships, is that here we are trying to cancel everything we can cancel to stay alive.
Yes. Yeah.
And what we did is that, you had to look at your product and what was generating profit for you, because it got down to where it was a survival, and rent had to be paid, payroll had to be paid, everything else we could put off a little. And we chose, to Les's point here, we chose to stay with electronic inspection because we saw the value as it was driving great recommendations, which drives repeat and referral business in the shop. I wasn't quite on the hours quick yet, almost there. But our goal was, how do we sell technician recommendations to keep the store generating cash? In 2008, I'm telling you, you needed everything you could. You could get rid of a lot of sales programs, but honestly, the only program that we kept was the MPI program.
If you think about it, it's what Les touched on is really how this industry has evolved. I say this all the time, car dealers are the most resilient bunch of entrepreneurs in the world, right? There's not a thing that hasn't been thrown at them, including what's going on right now in terms of having no cars to sell. And they've managed to survive it somehow. And that's because, they're resilient. But the other thing too is, and this is something I've noticed personally, is they're smarter today than they ever have been. Right. And I think part of the reality is that living through 2008 and I had no doubt that they'll come out of this latest, situation where an even smarter again. That's changed for me. I remember back when I started in this business, I used to jokingly say, you go to NADA and there's thousands of vendors and dealers are just lining up to buy stuff. And we used to jokingly say, look, these guys will buy just about anything. And that's not the case anymore. They're very savvy, gotten more savvy, I think, over the years, because of all the adversity they've been through. And, if you don't have a product now that demonstrates, measurable return on investment, makes sense for them, for their people, for their customers, drives the business principles that they want to achieve, you're not going to be in business very long. And that's one of the things that I've tried to learn and evolve. And then as I'm sitting here saying this, I'm thinking to myself, and I'm the guy that went into the tire side of the business. I don't know what you'd think I learned some stuff from Les, over the years, but apparently I didn't, because, it's, but John, you said something and I made a note, because it's, the timing of things, right? When we first started this company, I can't believe it's been almost 11 years now. Nobody wanted to talk to me about tires. And today might be the hottest thing that anybody wants to talk about. Still hard to sell, but a really hot thing to talk about. So I think we were probably a decade too early, but hopefully our time is right and now. So
I want to hitchhike on what David said, though, because, John and I have lived really similar lives where different than the software for less and products that you all brought. We were always on the how do we help develop the human, and John ran right towards it in the early 90s and said, got to have data, and I got to have data about people and appointments and how I made a business better. And I was blessed in my early days doing phone skill training for dealerships, right? And we had this data. John was almost my customer there at first, right? Because we were trying to help, but we had baseline data. And today we don't do anything in quantum without having data. The best decision I think I made so far is that, we bought a data company in ESI Trends, right? And now we have all this compelling data about retention, and Les is talking and Dave's talking about technicians and why aren't we getting them? I keep saying, why are we letting the good ones leave, right? And they're leaving us breadcrumbs about why they're leaving. If we follow the breadcrumbs and we study it. So for me today, I still talk to dealers about data, and I still try and make sure that it's compelling data that allows them to see an ROI, because there's just, John wasn't one of them, but there was just too many of us in training that we were taught by somebody else to say, we can't be accountable for an ROI. Sorry. We don't know what you'll do. We had our list of reasons why, when Tully said, well, how do I know that I'll actually get something out of this? Yeah. We spouted our memorized stuff that our bosses told us. And today, John does it every day. I do it every day. Ted, you do it every day. Yeah. David's team is doing it every day. I think what we concentrate more on is we want to be accountable for an ROI. We want to help make that business better, because today's dealer looks at it and it's a non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Jim Roche, I'll give you the last word on this.
We're sort of talking about how the market has evolved, which we were speaking about earlier. If I look at the last, say, 20 years, I'd say two things have happened to our customers. Number one, I think dealers have evolved a deeper appreciation of service and fixed ops and its profit contribution. It used to be all about car sales, right? We didn't want to talk about service. I remember once, I think Les was on this trip with me where we visited a very large, iconic dealer who will not be named. And we said, what is your monthly advertising budget? And he said, $600,000. And we said, how much do you spend on service? And he went, about $500 out of 600,000. So dealers' appreciation of and willingness to invest in service has evolved. And I think the service leaders, my observation would be that service leaders now are much more sophisticated and treat the service department kind of like their own business in making decisions. Not that they have total autonomy generally, but there is a higher degree of business sophistication than there was 20 years ago, which adds a lot of interesting dimensions to, the technology services that we all sell.
Everyone, we're going to have to leave it there. We're at time, but I think we need to come back and pick this up again. And I really enjoy the conversation we're having here today. I want to thank Ron. The panel that you have helped assemble here is amazing. And I want to thank everybody here today: Les Silver, Tully Williams, Jim Roche, David Boyle, Dave O'Brien, and John Traver, for all you do for the automotive industry, fixed ops community. I want to wish all of you and Ron as well. You and your families a happy Thanksgiving, and thank you again for all you do for Fixed Ops.
Thank you, Ted. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you.
Thanksgiving to everyone. You bet.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, guys.
Ron, nice job.
Well, this is a great time. I mean, this really is. There's nothing better than to sit back and listen to the wisdom that all these gentlemen have, gained over the years and now can share with us. So it's a pretty exciting time.
Hey, can I ask one question before we end this? Hey, Jim, can you send me a list of all those dealers that actually are interested in their service departments now?
In your email.
Thank you, buddy.
We'll leave it there. Everybody, the Legends panel here today at the Fixed Ops Roundtable.